On a bend of the Nile in southern Egypt, a temple of pale gold stone rises almost from the water itself. But this is no ordinary temple. Look closely and you find two of everything, two great gateways, two halls of columns, two sanctuaries side by side, as if one temple had been perfectly mirrored and fused into a single building. It was raised for two gods at once, one of them a crocodile, and it stands today as one of the strangest and most graceful monuments on the whole river. Welcome to the Temple of Kom Ombo. We are in Upper Egypt, on a bend of the Nile roughly midway between the ancient cities of Luxor and Aswan, at a small town called Kom Ombo. Here the river sweeps in a wide curve, and on a low rise above the water sits the temple, catching the light so that boats drifting downstream see it long before they arrive. For thousands of years, this was a crossing point and a place of trade, and the temple has always faced the water that gave it life. From the riverbank, the temple presents a broad, symmetrical face of honey-colored stone. Twin entrances open into it, and beyond them lie matching forecourts, matching halls, and matching inner rooms, all held within a single elegant structure. It is often called a double temple, and there is truly nothing else quite like it in Egypt. To approach it is to sense at once that this place was built to honor not one power, but two, balanced against each other in perfect stone symmetry. Everything about Kom Ombo begins with the river. The Nile here is wide and slow, curling past fields and palms, and the temple was set close enough to feel its presence in every season. In ancient times, these waters teemed with crocodiles, basking on the banks and sliding through the shallows, feared and revered in equal measure. It was on this reptile-haunted stretch of river that the people of Kom Ombo chose to build, and the river shaped both the temple and the gods who were worshipped within it. The idea behind Kom Ombo is beautifully simple and strangely rare. Rather than dedicate the temple to a single deity, its builders split it precisely down the middle and gave each half to a different god. Two parallel axes run side by side from the river toward the innermost rooms, so that a visitor could turn to the left or to the right and find an almost identical temple waiting. This mirrored design, with everything doubled and nothing favored, makes Kom Ombo unique among the great temples of the Nile. The southern half belonged to Sobek, the Crocodile God. Shown as a man with the head of a crocodile, or as the great reptile himself, Sobek was a lord of the Nile, a god of its waters and its dangers, and of fertility, strength, and raw power. In a land where crocodiles could mean sudden death, to honor Sobek was to bargain with the river itself, to ask the fierce master of the water for protection and abundance. Here at Kom Ombo, on a river once thick with crocodiles, his worship found its perfect home. The northern half was given to Haroeris, a form of Horus known as Horus the Elder. He was a falcon god of the sky and the sun, of kingship and of light, and he was also revered here as a divine healer. Where Sobek ruled the dark water below, Haroeris ruled the bright sky above, and the two gods together held the temple in balance, the reptile and the falcon, the river and the heavens, sharing a single sacred house between them. Once inside, the symmetry becomes overwhelming. A grand hall of thick columns opens up, and down its center runs an invisible line that divides the whole temple in two. To the south is Sobek's domain, to the north Haroeris, each with its own doorways, its own carved scenes, its own path deeper into the shadows. The columns themselves are crowned with richly carved capitals, and the walls on either side echo one another, so that the building feels less like one temple than like two twins holding hands in the dark. At the very heart of Kom Ombo lie the two sanctuaries, the most sacred rooms of all, resting side by side at the end of the twin axes. In one dwelt Sobek and the other Haroeris, each in the deepest, darkest, most private chamber of the temple. Between and beneath them a hidden passage runs, where priests could once stand unseen, and where the rituals of the two gods were kept forever separate yet forever paired. It is a quiet, solemn place, the still center of a building conceived entirely around the number 2. The crocodiles of Kom Ombo were more than symbols. Living crocodiles were kept and cared for as earthly images of Sobek, and when they died they were mummified with great reverence, wrapped and preserved as sacred creatures. Hundreds of these crocodile mummies have been found in the ground near the temple, and today a small museum at the site displays them, from tiny hatchlings to giants many feet long. To stand before them is to feel how deeply the people here loved and feared the master of the river. On one of the temple's back walls is carved a scene that has fascinated visitors for generations. It appears to show a collection of instruments, shapes that look strikingly like scalpels, forceps, scissors, and small bottles, arranged in neat rows in the stone. Many believe it depicts a set of ancient surgical and medical tools, a fitting image for a temple whose gods were also healers, and whose grounds may once have welcomed the sick seeking a cure. Whether a true medical catalog or a record of sacred ritual objects, it remains one of the most talked about carvings in all of Egypt. Life on the Nile depended on the flood, and Kom Ombo watched it carefully. Within the temple grounds is a Nilometer, a deep round well connected to the river, its stone sides once marked to measure how high the annual flood would rise. A high flood promised rich harvests, a low one warned of hunger, and so the priests read the water like a sacred scripture. This quiet stone shaft tied the temple directly to the rhythm of the river, turning the rise and fall of the Nile into knowledge, and knowledge into power. The temple we see today was raised mainly in the Ptolemaic age, the era of the Greek kings who ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great. Though foreign in origin, these rulers built in the old Egyptian manner, honoring the ancient gods and covering the walls with traditional scenes of offering and worship. Over generations, they added courts, halls, and gateways, and later hands continued the work into Roman times. Kom Ombo is thus a monument of a twilight age, when the last great dynasty before Rome poured its devotion into stone beside the Nile. Everywhere at Kom Ombo the stone speaks. Great columns still carry traces of the deep blues, reds, and golds that once blazed across them, and every surface is crowded with carved figures, kings before gods, crocodiles and falcons, offerings and prayers. Sunlight slants through the ruined roof and falls across reliefs that have watched over the river for more than 2,000 years. Though time and the Nile floods have worn and toppled parts of the temple, what survives is a gallery of ancient belief, written in careful, patient stone. For all it has suffered, earthquakes, floods, and the slow theft of its stone, Kom Ombo endures. It still stands on its bend of the river, its twin gateways open to the water, its columns catching the same golden light that has washed over them since the days of the Ptolemies. Cruise boats now drift up to its banks where sacred barges once did, and travelers come to it to puzzle over its doubled halls and its crocodile god. Few temples so clearly hold the strangeness and the beauty of ancient Egypt in a single view. A temple split in two, a crocodile god and a falcon god sharing one sacred house, and a Nilometer reading the flood on a bend of the ancient river. Thank you for watching. Follow for more interesting people, places, and things we cover on the channel.